Hello, hello, welcome everybody. Hello, hello, welcome everybody. I'm Jev, yes, Triple V. The accent, by the way, is purely Kiwi. I read old stories for children, so we keep this a family-friendly channel by having bad word blockers, banning bots, and preventing spam, so that means new followers need to wait a few minutes before they can join in the chat. Since these stories are so old, they're now in the public domain, which means they are free to read for anyone and by anyone, the way many Christmas songs are. The digital versions I read are from Project Gutenberg, and you'll find the link for that below. The physical ones are just old books my family has lying around. Sometimes I'll even show them to you. These, by the way, are live reads. Think of them as bedtime stories rather than actual audiobooks. You get the benefits of my mistakes, distractions, explanations, and terrible attempts at accents, along with plenty of chat and interruptions as we find out about things in the story. If you need to do work or chores, then that's fine. Just come and lurk. Please adjust your volume to suit. There are captions available if you have to be quiet or you have hearing challenges, but be warned, sometimes the captions aren't always that accurate. I am a member of the Codex, an awesome group of reading streamers on Twitch. People from many walks of life who share their love of reading, and you'll find links to the Codex reading team and our Discord server below. A special feature of the Codex Discord is the security channel for those of you who stream or moderate. You'll find lots of practical, useful information to help keep your stream and your community safe. So, hang around and come discover adventure with me. You never know what we'll find. Sorry, just making sure you know I'm actually here while I then fidget to try and find the unmute button. So I'm just going to move my chair slightly sideways so I'm a little bit more in the middle of the frame. Right, here we are. And I just discovered that my iPad is nearly flat. So I had to scramble to get that one plugged in as well. How are you? I hope you're well. I hope you're not too flustered by anything at the moment. And I hope you're here for a little bit of fun that has absolutely nothing to do with real life, because this is a vintage adventure story. And while it may be inspired by some real life things, we know that the 1910s were not, when you're talking about kids' books, were not necessarily based on ultra realism. So there you go. Before we go further, I'm going to run a little video of tips for those who haven't been here before. When I type the right thing, tips for those who haven't been here before, reminders for those who have. So when we get to the end of it, tell me how well you're doing in terms of what you've already got prepped. Here we go.
Hello. My name is Raccoon Z. In Z. That's right. 3 C's and 3 O's. Ha. So, welcome to the stream. We have many tips for you to help enjoy the stream. Number 1. Have a drink. I like water. As soon as my human helps me out here. So, another part of that is when I hydrate, when I take a drink, you do too. You can indicate that you've done so by giving a thumbs up or use the water bottle emoji down in chat. Number 3, sure, why not? Food or snacks? I don't have any right now, but you eat whatever you'd like to eat. Maybe it's a whole meal, maybe it's a snack, I don't know. You do you. Number 4, get comfy. You can wrap up in something. Thanks, human. That's more like it. Grab a pillow, maybe you've got a fidget toy you can play with. But do anything you like to be comfy. You could even have, I don't know, maybe your favorite human will give you scritches. Hey, human. That's right. Give me scritches. Yeah, that's right there. Yeah. No, don't touch the floof. Next, we have number 5, something to write with or write on. Hey, I can't reach the pad. There you go. And I need something to write on. I just said something to write. Oh wait, that's something to write on. I need something to write with. Okay. Okay, so I don't have opposable thumbs, but you do. Write memos down. You might need to remember something. Maybe not right now, but maybe after the stream. Number 6. Get involved. Join in chat. Chat in chat. Use commands. Play bingo because, that lady says some pretty crazy things from time to time. Make clips. You can even have them featured. Maybe we can see your clips someday. Spin the pages, which are like right down there somewhere. They look like a book or something. The thing down there with a number under chat. And just do whatever you can to enjoy chat. Thanks for watching.
And welcome back. So do you have your drinks, your water for hydrating, your snacks, or something to eat? Your something to write with and something to write on, something or someone to keep you company. Perry is keeping me company. My current fidget animal. And are you ready to do some things to keep yourself involved? There you go. that's about it. I have snacks. I have water as my drink and as my hydration. I do have my 3 bottles here labelled. We have Lad. See, Lad. We have, they've all been refilled, so they're full. Gas. And we also have, I've got them turned around so I can actually see the labels and grab the right one. We also have motor. So there you go. I'm ready. I definitely hope we do not get through all of this, because this is 2 litres. So that's 4.5 litres of water. I think that would be quite dangerous to get through all of that in one stream, to say nothing of how well my bladder would be coping with that. So, are you ready? Let's get on with this. Why is that gone and made itself go to sleep? It's not meant to. Right. I've got my book there. I'm ready to go. Oh, snacks. Yes, I have snacks. Covering the branding. There you go. I have New Zealand lollies in a party pack, which just means that there's a mixture of different ones. They're largely sort of gummy style ones, but New Zealand gummy type lollies are not the ultra chewy ones like the Haribo bears and that sort of stuff are, which I'll let you in on a little secret. Those extra chewy bears, they are normal gummies that have been air dried for longer. That's why they're so chewy. That's all it is. That's the only difference. So, yeah. Just the things you find out when you try to find out what the recipe is for actually making gummy lollies yourself. I don't even know if I want to know what the subtitles were trying to say. They get up to some of their own mischief, and it can be a little bit blush-making sometimes if you have actually seen some of the things that they try and say. Subtitles go home, you're drunk? Is it one of those days? I do not have anything that is hard liquor or anything like that today, so it's not going to be me that's making subtitles a little bit squiffy, and that will be entirely their own doing. So what was I going to... Oh, I was going to tell you about airships. So, as I said in my not the actual recorded intro, but the general hi, how are you intro, the stories are purely imaginary. They are, in the Tom Swift series though, they are based on usually one outstanding device, invention, something like that, that the story, that is key to the story, and it will be usually referenced in the title. But the reason for that is, in real life, there were some major developments going on with whatever the title titular invention is, and so therefore the publishing house decided to get young people interested in that sort of thing, scientific endeavours, inventing and all that sort of stuff, by actually writing stories that involve them. A certain level of realism with that the story ideas, but also a little bit of maybe not quite as realistic as they wanted it to be, because they're using a lot of artistic license. Now, when it comes to airships, I have a certain set of parameters in my mind, and most of that is based on, 1, the Hindenburg disaster, and 2, blimps. I don't know about you. Are you in the same sort of situation? And so when they talk about having an airship that's going to go up to 80 miles an hour, and I'm like, yeah, right. I don't know how realistic that is, but I decided I was going to do a little bit of looking online. Initially, I was just looking for pictures of airships to see what was around. So a blimp is a non-rigid airship, okay? In case you're wondering, it has no rigid framework or skeleton inside it or outside it to hold it in shape. It is purely its inflated form, and that's it. And it is its lift is provided by having a particular gas inside that envelope, inside that shape, and that's what gives it its shape, is the envelope, the way it's made, and it's effectively a sealed unit. if necessary, they can add some extra to it or vent a little bit off, but it's not like a hot air balloon where you're constantly heating normal air that's inside it to make those molecules move further apart, all those particles of air move further apart, because the hotter a gas is, the further those particles move apart. And that is what makes it lift, is because there's more room between them, there's less of them, they weigh less. Therefore, if you can keep them in a contained space, they will rise above the normal gas of the same form that is not as hot. That's how a hot air balloon works. You heat the air, it expands. It takes up more room for the same weight. Therefore, that object lifts. So keeping in mind, understanding that lift is you've got to counteract what the weight is that you've got with the buoyancy of whatever your gas is. In my mind, when they're talking about what's going to be in the gondola, that's the piece that runs underneath the actual airship, that the people are in, that the motors are attached to, and all that sort of stuff. They were talking about a lot of very, very heavy equipment in my mind. And so I'm like, how realistic is that? The extent of how much stuff they were taking compared with what they were describing that they were building for the actual envelope that was going to hold that up. It seemed like a lot of really heavy stuff for quite a small floaty thing. Hi, Void, great to have you here. So to me, it was very much an imaginary story. Now, a little bit of backstory for airships. The first airship was invented in the late 1700s, just after hot air balloons were invented and tested, but it never got built. Somebody designed one, somebody wrote stuff down about it and all that sort of stuff, but no one ever actually got around to building it. So the idea of airships, powered balloons, as opposed to hot air balloons that are pushed by air currents, and you do not get to decide where you're going except for up and down. The idea of actually having controlled lighter than aircraft is actually really old, relatively speaking. But they didn't start seriously making them until they started playing around at the end of the 1800s. And then they had the development of air travel via lighter than air, because they hadn't yet come up with understanding the science of how to make a heavier than air craft fly, which requires speed. That's the biggest thing. How fast it's going forward through the air is what makes something a heavier than aircraft. That's what they're referred to as, not blimps and dirigibles and hot air balloons, but planes. Those are called heavier than aircraft. What makes them stay up in the air is how fast they're moving through the air because of the shape of their wings, which takes some quite complicated mathematics. And I know they could do some complicated maths back then, but it's a combination of complicated mathematics and physics. And I don't think they quite had that together back in the day when they were inventing things like hot air balloons and lighter than air aircraft. Yeah, blimps and zeppelins. So a blimp is non-rigid. A dirigible is a lighter than aircraft which has a framework inside it. So a zeppelin is a particular brand of dirigible. There were a bunch of other ones that were around. The UK made a few. The Americans made a few. The French made some. And they were actually a lot more... It was a lot more of a done thing than what I'd ever realised. To the point where there's actually photos on someone's blog post, which the post is I'm trying to find the title of it. Men typically have a shorter lifespan than women. These dirigible daredevils prove why, although some of those aren't dirigibles. So it's just a blog post which has got lots and lots of photos of them, because some of the early ones, you have the blimp-like top bit, and then there's a frame that's hanging underneath it. It's literally a frame. The Hindenburg was a Zeppelin, one of the Zeppelins. Made by Zeppelin, and the Hindenburg had a rigid frame which had gas cells inside it. Cells as in bags that would hold, that were gas tight, so you could fill them up with your floating gas, and then they were all held inside this frame, which then had an outer coating on it. So that's what held it all together. And the biggest problem was that they were using hydrogen, because hydrogen was really easy to produce. So, yeah, that blog post with all these pictures, it's the soft balloons with a framework underneath it, and they had people who would sit inside that framework. There would be a motor strapped on the back with a propeller on it, and it would have a little rudder and the equivalent of some ailerons, kind of, or flaps to make it go up and down a bit and all that sort of stuff, but really weird and dangerous. And there's some rather odd stuff that was going on. So what I didn't know, I don't know if you know, so Zeppelin made a whole lot of different models of airships, the rigid frame ones, and the Graf Zeppelin was a particular line of them, a particular style of them. The Hindenburg was a different set of them that they made. So Zeppelin being the brand name, and then Graf was the model name, I suppose, and then they had a model number as well. So the Graf Zeppelin was being used between 1928 and 1937. Okay, that makes, yeah, I get that. So this is not what the Hindenburg was. It was related to these, but not the same one, made by the same company. So Graf Zeppelins, the LZ-127 Graf Zeppelin was a German passenger-carrying, hydrogen-filled rigid airship, okay? Now, here's the mind-blowing bit for me. It made 590 flights and totaled almost 1.7 million kilometres, or over 1 million miles of air travel. That's not just, we're going to experiment a bit. No, this is them actually carrying passengers between Europe and South America, Europe and North America. Sorry, wrong direction, viewers. Europe and South America, Europe and North America, on a regular basis. And they did use, engines, motors. I'm not sure which one it is. Oh, yeah, motor, but it's not in the book. I'm not reading the book yet, so it doesn't count. But I'm going to have a drink of water anyway, because I need it. So technically, the keywords are for when I'm reading. They're from the text of the book. But let's all have a drink of water anyway. And I've got a certain somebody who's come inside out of the wet, because it's drizzling outside, and wants treats. So come on, up you hop. Yeah, you go over there. Up. Go. Sit. And then you can have treats. And these guys can have a bonus cat picture. Let's just turn the cat cam on and you can see him having some treats. Oh my goodness, what's up with that? There, he was looking at his camera like this. It was quite funny. That was before I even tried to move it. Yes, just wait, sit. You know the rules. He's got to be sitting, otherwise he doesn't get it. Because it's a behaviour thing. Wait. Good boy. He's purring really loudly. I wish I had a microphone over by him. There you go. 1, 2. I don't know why. Just 3 is what it is. 3. There you go. I'm not forcing him to do that. He actually used to get really cross with me if I didn't let him check that there was no food left on my hands. It's just one of those funny cat things. So, yeah, they did a lot of passenger flights. They used to carry mail, like airmail, from one country to the other. So I did actually see somewhere that it used to take sort of like 3 or 4 days to go from Germany to, I think it was South America. Not something I would have thought of doing, but hey, okay, if you got lots of money. It'll cost a lot of money to do it. But they had people who were doing it. It's just like, oh my goodness. And one of the other intriguing things about the Graf Zeppelin was that the particular gas they used for firing the engines, they'd use petrol for getting it started to get it moving forward fast enough. Then they'd swap fuels in the engines that they used. And the fuel that they used was something called blue gas. And one of the reasons why it really intrigued me, science, one of the reasons why they used it is because this particular gas weighed the same roughly as air. So when you burnt it and its space was taken by normal air, as in the fuel tanks, you didn't have to compensate for the airship getting lighter or heavier. And this is the fuel that they were using for pushing the airship forward in the directions they wanted it to go. You can have a snooze now. Yes, you can. Hello, lovely. Yeah. So there's all sorts of really cool stuff about them. So there's a lot of information about the Graf Zeppelin that I'm specifically mentioning, the LZ-127 Graf Zeppelin. That's the one that had that really long distance that it did. It went around the world. To me, I'm only thinking of things like the Goodyear blimp, and I'm thinking of the Hindenburg with the explosion and the fire and the deaths and all that sort of stuff. And yet they were established enough that they had been going around the world and stuff. They had different air stations, places where they could park them in a big hangar that was safe and it would still be inflated. All sorts of stuff in lots of different countries. It's not like you had an airfield everywhere. But yeah, it's more that the biggest danger was the combination of fuel and then the fact that they have a high windage. So if you've got it parked, either it's anchored to the ground or it's tethered to a great big high tower thing which has a gangway out to it when you're loading and unloading people, but the rest of the time it's actually anchored or moored to that tower. The problem is that because they're as big as they are to get enough lift with all that buoyancy inside it to counteract the weight of the load that they're carrying with the people, the gondola, that's the bit that the people are in underneath and all that sort of stuff. It's big enough that when the wind blows, if it's not moving itself, when the wind blows, it's really pushing it around a lot, because it's like if you get outside on a windy day and hold up a big piece of cardboard or something like that, it's going to really push you around a lot more than you expect. And these things were massive. So quite interesting that just what they got up to with them. Lots of things. So the Graf Zeppelin used a pod underneath called a gondola. That was the space that the people went into and stayed in while they were traveling. I actually have a picture of that now. Let's find what I need to turn off and what I need to turn on. Sorry about that. That was the end of the cat pictures. Illustration books. So we had this before, which is the map of roughly where the stories are set. And then we've got this, which was one of the sort of ideas, kind of what the airship in the book is like, although they talked about a lot more stuff in the cabin and all that sort of thing. So I don't think it really is. I think that was just some artist's imagination. That's an air view of it. So this is the gondola underneath the Graf Zeppelin. Okay, so as you can see, it comes up higher at the front here. It gets down lower there. That's because this is underneath. No, that's the right way for you guys. So the shape of them is kind of like, let's see if I can find something that's got a, yeah, okay, this will do. That way. So ignore the round bit there at the front, the lid. okay? They're kind of like this tapered cigar shape, you know, a big long cylinder, and it comes down to a point at each end. So the actual gondola is under this part here. So, except that this is on the ship. It's a lot longer for that taper, so it comes down like that, and it's a more of a flat along the bottom. So instead of hanging down here, it's actually under this front bit here, because these windows here, that's where the pilots were, that's where the navigator was, and all those people who had to keep an eye on things and make sure they were doing it right. They needed to be able to see the tower if they were docking to a tower, if they were coming down to a landing space like an airfield, which would have a hangar, and people were going to be there to meet them. They'd need to take it to the place that was near enough to where it was going to get fastened, because otherwise you've got to manhandle it, and that's quite hard. So this one here had a rail along the side, and people would actually hold on to it to help with keeping it down until they're ready to take off. There's the pilot talking to them. This is one of the little side motors for just sort of adjusting how it's sitting if you need to move it a little bit. But yeah, they could actually manhandle them if they had to, because it's not like it's heavy, it's just that it's big. And then this is the sort of layout they had inside it. Let's turn those keywords off, actually. Keywords, that one, there. So this is that gondola underneath it. So that's the front where they were piloting it from, driving it from. This is where the, this is an office where the engineer and the navigator and stuff, if they had to do any written work, would work there. They would do laboratory work and all sorts of stuff like that. There you go, instrument pod. So that will be where they're actually looking at things like finding out what the air pressure is and those sort of things to see how high they are. So they would get in or out through this passageway here. It's called the last step, because if you're up in the air and you go out that door, that's the last step you're taking. Main dining and lounge area for your passengers, and these are bunk rooms, literally 2 people in each of these rooms down each side. Some of them are a little bit bigger, where you've got a sofa and a set of bunks, and then you've got a little bathroom and things like that, and then you've got storage space down the back. And this is the sort of thing I was thinking, okay, that's got to be a massive airship if the story is telling us about carrying so much stuff. They were talking about the engines, they were talking about the fuel. Yes, we expect that, but they were talking about having all sorts of extra stuff, which sounds like this sort of thing, which was actually happening at the time. This is from this particular one is from a much later period. So this is 1910 in our story, but this is from 1928 to 37, this particular design. But there was already talk of that sort of thing going on. And so the author's imagination is saying, well, let's project this down for our story, except that, I mean, they wouldn't have been talking about it being quite as big. They were probably talking about something that was about this part here, just that front part. But that was a massive envelope if you actually look at how big the whole of the rest. I mean, me holding my arms out like this is not big enough for the airship that goes with this gondola. So what they're talking about, having the thing in their shed and filling the envelope with gas, no, artistic license. So there you go. I just wanted to share. So this is actually from the plans of it. The steering room, the navigating room, the radio room, the funk room is radio room, the kitchen, the entrance, Eingang, entrance, Aufenthalts us Speiserraum, lounge room, I guess. And then these are bunk rooms. So these would be your luxury cabins. So you've got 2 sets of bunks, and then they've got the wall in between taken out, and they've got their own little private lounge dining area within it. And they were fed really well. I've seen photos of some of the other ones. There you go. That's those illustrations. Let's get this out of the way, and then we can get on with reading the book. Illustrations. There it is. Was there anything else I wanted to show you from there? No, I do have some pictures. No, don't need those, don't need those, don't need those. I'm just scrolling through just to see if I can see anything. Oh, Graf Zeppelin. That one there is probably the best one to show you. I'll see if I can get that to show. and hopefully my computer's going to cope with it. Display capture. There it is. Graf Zeppelin. That's the ship that I've just been telling you about. That is the gondola underneath. So this is why, in my mind, when this boy and his friend have invented an airship which you can cross large distances on, which they're going to do in the story, it's like, yeah, I can see what you're talking about, but I think it's the way you're describing it is a little bit far-fetched. Admittedly, this is 18 years later that it's being developed. But the reason why it was in the story in the first place is because the aim of this particular series of books was to bring before young lads things that were upcoming inventions that were actually currently being developed. They got their ideas from the scientific magazines and stuff. Oh, that's right. I was going to show you this one. So that's it. It looks quite short and stumpy there. This is actually the same one. That is the same airship. That is the gondola there at the front. Okay, and underneath it has two driving pods, pods that hold motors, and they actually could, and it was, you see it more on the Hindenburg style of ones, which is a slightly different design. Some of them actually had a couple of little biplanes hanging underneath as well. So one of the big differences between this style, the Graf Zeppelin, and the Hindenburg is that the Graf Zeppelin had this gondola underneath, and as far as I can tell, the Hindenburg, they actually had the accommodation section down inside the bottom of the envelope, actually inside there, so that this was all gas pods up above them, and then they had this bit underneath, had a ceiling over the top, and then they were actually in the balloon shape. Just to make it a lot more streamlined and keep all the weight within that same space. And that's part of the difference in the design. So there you go. Oh, there's the picture of the planes underneath. Here you go. Planes underneath. See? Engine pod, one of them's a driving pod. I can't remember which is which, but you've got two planes. Those are actually fastened underneath, and they just sit there until they're needed, and someone will go along through the framework inside it and then down into the plane and fly it off, because these are open cockpit planes. Easy enough to do, as long as you aren't worried about where you are and all that sort of stuff. There you go. This is how they're fastened up to a tower, and this one is in Cardington in England. And there you've got a whole bunch of politicians on the little balcony up the top of this tower. It's fastened on up there. There's a little wee bracket that's meant to stop it coming hard up against the fastening. And they are climbing on board the gangplank, which goes down and through the main body of it, down to where they are going to have their accommodation space. Just for weirdness' sake, because that's what they did. I really... It's not something that I can imagine, because I'm used to aeroplanes that take hundreds of people, not airships that take days and days and days to get anywhere. You know, I'm used to our modern inventions, not the old ones. And so therefore, when they first start describing it, it's like, that's unrealistic. Well, yeah, it is, but not as unrealistic as I thought it was. That's really what it was all about. All that rant. Let's ignore the rest of that rant and get on with reading our story then. Sorry. Right, and that also meant that my book had a chance to get a little bit more charge than it had been. Here we go. Let's just hope that this is going to unlock for me and not take too long. So we're up to 35%. It was down to 20-something%. I can't remember. So chapter 5, colliding with a tower. Oh, yeah, that's right. They did later on start switching to different gases, but they don't lift as much as hydrogen does. Hydrogen is way lighter than helium. It's half the weight of helium. Look at its atomic mass. So here you go. Colliding with a tower. I don't think in this one it's going to cause the thing to explode, though. She seems to work, observed Tom, looking from where he was stationed near some electrical switches towards Mr. Sharp, who is his friend, who is the inventor and aeronaut. "Of course she does," replied the aeronaut. "I knew it would, but I wasn't so sure that it would scoot along in this fashion. We're making pretty good speed, but we'll do better when the motor gets to running smoother." So that's one of the things I was going to just recap for you in the last reading, is it's got new motors, or what we would now call engines. And with an engine, especially in the old days, but even now a little bit, they need a certain amount of time to run in. That's the phrase used, where it's all made, it's correctly made, but like the pistons are going up and down inside their cylinders, and it's all been machined properly, and they've got little seal rings around the top of the cylinder to keep the explosion pressure, so it's going to be effective inside the cylinder to push the piston up and down. But the reality is that they need to be run gently enough for a certain amount of time to just smooth together. So it's not that they're not already smooth, it's so that the rings sit properly there and they move properly through. There's a certain amount of the lubrication of the oil or whatever else they're using for it that needs to get and over the surfaces of the different parts of it and things like that. And it's actually, you can do all that you can, machining it, building it, putting it together correctly and have everything fitting perfectly. But with an engine, until it has been run and got really warm as it's going to get when it's in use, and still having the pistons going up and down inside their cylinders and things rotating like crankshafts and all that sort of stuff, valves going up and opening and shutting, all of that sort of stuff going on, it won't actually run well and reliably together until it's had a certain amount of time being run without too much load. If you push it too hard, too fast, too long, which causes it to heat up too much, they actually will seize, which is where the different layers of metal that are running past each other will actually bind together. An engine that has seized, the two layers, the layers of metal that are rubbing up against each other quite hard and quite fast and producing quite a lot of extra heat, not just the explosion that's causing it to run, will bind together and you cannot move them. An engine that's seized, that's what's happened. And so with an old car engine or an old vehicle engine, you needed to run it in. So you weren't allowed to take the revolutions of how fast the main shaft of the engine is turning around, you know, the RPM, the rate, the revolutions per minute. You couldn't take it over a certain number, because if it kept under that number, it wouldn't get too hot, and it wasn't going to get to the point where it was going to seize, where the two layers are going to bind together and stop the thing from moving at all. And it will, literally, it will bind together and you cannot move it. You cannot use a crank to turn it over or anything. It will just freeze together. Well, bind together. It's not freezing because it's not cold, it's hot. And so you had to run an engine and you needed to give it time. You didn't put too much load on it. You didn't run it too hard. So that's what he's talking about when he says we'll do better when the motor gets to running smoother. That's because they've started with a new motor, what we would now call an engine. Okay, so I'll carry on. "How high up are we?" asked Tom. The balloonist glanced at several gauges near the steering wheel. "A little short of 3,000 feet, he answered. "Do you want to go higher?" No, I guess not," was Tom's answer. He halted over the works, and his breath came in gasps. "Don't get alarmed," called Mr. Sharp quickly, noting that his companion was in distress because of the high altitude. 3,000 feet isn't really high. I'm guessing he's saying 3,000 feet above ground level where they came from. Thank you, Coleslaw. Ariel, what's all this about? Time for the rotator of haphazard? I don't know why that GIF was so short, by the way. Let's see what we're going to get. Which headband or ears am I going to be wearing? So I haven't changed them all. Butterflies. Cool. Butterflies, they are in here. I shall just find them. Butterflies. That's hearts. Oh, that one's falling off again. Pom-poms. You butterflies. Let's really odd. Ah, found them. Butterflies. I must have changed some of them because butterflies didn't actually exist there. Oh no, we've got another one now. Goriki has redeemed. The extractor of dither is going to give us... Oh, and I'll move this cushion so you can see the butterflies. Kind of. Oh, I'll have to sit right down like this so you can see the butterflies. Unicorn! And which unicorn have we got? Is it going to work? I hope so. Sky is the unicorn of the moment. I've got to check which one Sky is. I can't actually remember at the moment. Hang on a minute. I'll just have a look. I've got it somewhere. I had it already, but I forgot to actually open up that image today. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. That one. Oh, and I need to turn on the egg timer. Where's egg timer? Egg timer, turn you on. Yes, there it is, and we'll start running it. There it is, that's running. Now, I'm just going to try and find Sky when I find the right folder. Headbands, unicorn, existing, and I found it. Sky, yes, I know which one Sky is. That's good. Remember, I put the names on them all the other day because we did that survey a while ago. So yay, there you go, butterflies. So we'll carry on reading, and I'm going to try and sit down low like this so you can see, and try not to wobble the desk too much. And don't forget we're doing our... Oh, I forgot to put the keywords back on stream. Keywords is what I was just about to say. Don't forget we're doing our keywords. And that we do have motor as one that we have to do, because he just said we'll do better when the motor gets to running smoother. So there you go, motor. And I don't have a word counter yet. Sorry. So everyone take a drink. So Tom was a little bit breathless, and this was surprising me because they're not actually at a very high altitude. Don't get alarmed, called Mr. Sharp quickly, noting that his companion was in distress because of the high altitude. That always happens to persons who go into a thin air for the first time, just as if you'd climbed a high mountain. Breathe as slowly as you can and swallow frequently. That will relieve the pressure on your eardrums. I'll send the ship lower. Tom did as he was advised, and the aeronaut, deflecting the rudder, sent the red cloud on a downward slant. The cat's come back, but he's sitting on the floor on some printed out papers I've got, which I can't show you because floor. Sent the red cloud on a downward slant. Tom at once felt relieved, both because the action of swallowing equalised the pressure on the eardrums, true, that does make a difference, and because the airship was soon in a more dense atmosphere, more like that of the Earth. So it's quite possibly just because he's not used to the air being thinner. I don't know. Whatever. How are you now? Asked the man of the lad, as the craft was again on an even keel. Lad. Now we have one here called Lad. Ah, that's Lad. I was trying to remember which bottle it was. I've got to open it. Asked the man of the lad. Here you go, Lad. Try not to knock that one over. I need to swap that out with something that has a easy sealing lid. As the craft was again on an even keel. All right, replied Tom briskly. I didn't know what ailed me at first. I was troubled the same way when I first went up in a balloon, commented Mr. Sharp. We'll run along for a few miles at an elevation of about 500 feet. So he's come down a long way, because it was 3,000 before. Of about 500 feet, and then we'll go to within 100 feet of the Earth and see how the red cloud behaves under different conditions. Take a look below and see what you think of it. Tom looked low through one of the several plate glass windows in the floor of the car being what on the Graf Zeppelin was the gondola. Subtitles, I think bottles with sealing lids would be pretty damn rare. It's chosen the wrong sealing. Tom looked low through one of the several plate glass windows in the floor of the car. He gave a gasp of astonishment. "Why, we're right over Lake Carlopa," he gasped. That's where that illustration I had for you at the beginning of the slides before was about. Not this one, but this one. That idea. So I'll leave that there for a minute. That one says 2,500 feet. Somebody actually produced this from Google Earth or something like that, and then marked on it where they thought the different places were. Excuse me. "Of course," admitted Mr. Sharp with a laugh, "and I'm glad to say that we're better off than when I was last in the air over the same body of water." Yes, because he was underneath a burning balloon. And he could scarcely repress a shudder as he thought of the perilous position in the blazing balloon as related in detail in Tom Swift and his motorboat. His perilous position. The lake was spread out below the navigators of the air like some mirror of silver in a setting of green fields. Tom could see a winding river that flowed into the lake, and he noted towns, villages, and even distant cities, interspersed here and there with broad farms or patches of woodland, like a bird's eye view of a stretch of countryside. "This is great," he exclaimed with enthusiasm. "I wouldn't miss this for the world." "Oh, you haven't seen things yet," replied Mr. Sharp. "Wait until we take a long trip, which we'll do soon, as the ship is behaving much better than I dared to hope." A lot of their testing is very, let's actually go and do it, experimental. "Well, we're 500 feet high now." Oopsie, sorry, that's probably a bit loud. Let's just take off butterflies and find... Oh, I had that on back front. I've got the fluff side. It's meant to have the gems on. It's meant to have the little gems on the side that you were seeing. Doesn't matter. Let's just find... I know it's here. So I put it here. No, not that one. Oh, come on. It's the very last one. I mean, yes, I know it's the last one I would grab because I wouldn't keep on getting more of them out after I had the one I wanted, but that wasn't the way I meant it. It was the last one that was actually still in the space. Put them back so I can find them when I need them. Here we go. And this is Sky. Welcome, Sky. Right, here we go. We're carrying on. We've got to figure out where I got up to. And we need to start that again. Yay, that's sorted. I'm just going to bring the book closer to me so that I can see it a little bit better. Well, we're at 500 feet high now, and I'll run along at that elevation for a while. Now, these days, the elevation you're at in a plane or anything else like that is actually above sea level, above standard sea level, mean sea level. It's not compared with how high above the actual land it is that you are over, unless you're using a measurement device and system that sees how far below you the land actually is. Now, in aeroplanes, they do actually have devices that do that, because an aeroplane is not allowed to go closer than a certain distance above the actual land below it. So if I'm on a mountain, not a high mountain, but a rounded hill mountain that's 5,000 feet high in the air, and if the limit for where I am is 1,000 feet above land, then that means that the aircraft has to be at 6,000 feet above sea level, because they keep the same distance above. Different in different countries, and it also depends on the type of aircraft it is too. But like if you're on a plane and they're talking about, well, we're now at 30,000 feet, what they mean is 30,000 feet above sea level. That's the standard set of measurement that they work on, is above sea level. So it depends on what they're measuring for. But in this story, all the measurements he's talked about so far are how much above the land that's below them. So if they go over that mountain there, he will talk about a number, and it will probably be like 500 feet above that, as opposed to 500 feet above the surface of the lake. So we'll see what happens. I don't know how far they're going to travel because I haven't read it before. Objects on the earth became more distinct now, and Tom could observe excited throngs running along and pointing upward, because aircraft were not common, were they? They were several miles from Shopton, and the machinery was running smoothly, the motor with its many cylinders purring like a big cat. Motor. I hope you're drinking your water too. We could have lunch if we'd brought anything to eat, observed Tom. Yes, assented his companion, but I think we'll go back now. Your father may be anxious. Just come here, Tom, and I'll show you how to steer. I'm going down a short distance. He depressed the rudder, and the red cloud shot earthward. Then, as the airship was turned about, the young inventor was allowed to try his hand at managing it. He said afterward that it was like guiding a fleecy cloud. You don't really feel the change of direction through your hands with your steering equipment. Unlike in a car where you actually feel what's going on through the texture of the ground coming up through the wheels and through the steering mechanism. Point her straight for Shopton, counselled Mr. Sharp, when he had explained the various wheels and levers to the lad. Straight she is, answered the lad. For some reason, lad is a word you're allowed to repeat, one sentence after another. Imitating a sailor's reply, "Oh, but this is great. It beats even my motorboat." "It goes considerably faster at all events," remarked Mr. Sharp. "Keep her steady now while I take a look at the engine. I want to be sure it doesn't run hot." We know why, don't we? He went aft where all the machinery in the car was located, and Tom was left alone in the small pilot house. He felt a thrill as he looked down at the earth beneath him and saw the crowds of wonder gazers, people in wonder gazing up. Yes. Oh, motor. Yes, thank you. Very good. Well spotted there, Void. The wonder gazers, where are they? Pointing at the great red airship flying high over their heads. Rapidly the open fields slipped along, giving place to a large city. "Roxmond," murmured Tom as he noted it. I don't think I've ever heard of Roxmond. Don't see it there. There's Shopton there. There's Waterfield. There's Dalkton? I don't know. I can't read all the names on this, but I don't think all of the ones that are referenced are on there. Roxmond, murmured Tom as he noted it. We're about 50 miles from home, so they've actually travelled quite a long way. But we'll soon be back in the shed at this rate. We certainly are slipping along. 150 feet elevation, he went on as he looked at a gauge. I wonder if I'll ever get used to going several miles up in the air. Which 150 feet isn't several miles, by the way, because 150 feet isn't a mile. That would make a mile very small. He shifted the rudder a bit to go to the left. The red cloud obeyed promptly, but the next instant something snapped. Tom, with a startled air, looked around. He could see nothing wrong, but a moment later the airship dipped suddenly towards the earth. Then it seemed to increase its forward speed, and a few seconds later... Hang on a minute, this thing's shouting at us. Oh my goodness, egg timer at the same time as all of this excitement. A few seconds later was rushing straight at a tall ornamental tower that rose from one corner of a large building.
Mr. Sharp, cried the lad. Something has happened. We're heading for that tower. Steer to one side, called the balloonist. Tom tried, but he found that the helm, that's the steering system, had become jammed. The horizontal rudder would not work. That means the one that will make it go left and right would not work, and the craft was rushing nearer and nearer every minute to the pile of brick and mortar. We're going to have a collision, shouted Tom. Better shut off the power so they're not being pushed forward. So they slow down and the floating that they've got holds them up. The two propellers were whirling around so swiftly that they looked like blurs of light. Mr. Sharp came rushing forward and Tom relinquished the steering wheel to him. In vain did the aeronaut try to change the course of the airship. Then with a shout to Tom to disconnect the electric switch, the man turned off the power from the motor. But it was too late. Straight at the tower rushed the red cloud, and a moment later had hit it a glancing blow, smashing the forward propeller and breaking off both blades. That's not good. The nose of the aluminium gas canister knocked off a few bricks from the tower, and then the ship, losing way, slowly settled to the flat roof of the building. "We're smashed!" cried Tom with something like despair in his voice. "That's nothing. Don't worry. It might be worse. Not the first time I've had an accident. It's only one propeller and I can easily make another," said Mr. Sharp in his quick, jerky sentences. He had allowed some of the gas to escape from the container, making the ship less buoyant, so that it remained on the roof. That's quite sensible, actually. The aeronaut and Tom looked from the windows of the car to note if any further damage had been done. No, car was one of our other books. and he let some gas out. Sorry. Gas. The aeronaut and Tom looked from the windows of the car to note if any further damage had been done. They were just congratulating themselves that the rudder marked the extent when, from a scuttle in the roof, I hate it when air and gravity fight over me. Oh, yeah. From a scuttle in the roof, there came a procession of young ladies led by an elderly matron wearing spectacles, and having a very determined, bristling air. "Well, I must say, this is a very unceremonious proceeding," exclaimed the spectacled woman. "Pray, gentlemen, to what are we indebted for this honour?" And I don't think she was being polite when she said honour. 1910, elderly would be like 55. I know, I must be decrepit then. Ancient. "It was an accident, ma'am," replied Mr. Sharp, removing his hat and bowing. "A mere accident. Try apologising, mate." "I suppose it was an accident that the tower of this building was damaged. If not absolutely loosened at the foundations, you will have to pay the damages." Then turning and seeing about 20 of young ladies behind her on the flat roof, each young lady eyeing with astonishment, not unmixed with admiration, the airship. What about Tom? They're probably eyeing him too. The elderly one added, "Pupils, to your rooms at once. How dare you leave without permission?" "Oh, Miss Perkman," exclaimed a voice, at the sound of which Tom started. "Mayn't we see the airship? It will be useful in our natural philosophy study." Tom looked at the young lady who had spoken. "Mary Nestor!" he exclaimed. Mr. Swift. Yet when in public you call Mr. or Miss, you don't actually say their first name, because that is a close friendship. When you're with other people around you, you don't do that. Back then. "Mr. Swift," she rejoined, "how in the world did you get here?" "Well, the thumping great airship on the roof might be a clue." "I was going to ask you the same question," retorted the lad. "We flew here." "Young ladies, silence!" cried Miss Perkman, who was evidently the principal of the school. "The idea of any one of you daring to speak to these persons! Without my permission and without an introduction, I shall make them pay heavily for damaging my seminary, which was a school of sorts, not necessarily a church school, as in for training someone to be a vicar or a priest. That's these days what we call a seminary. Well, my understanding of it. She added as she strode toward Mr. Sharp, who by this time was out of the car. "To your rooms at once," Miss Perkman ordered again, but not a young lady moved. The airship was too much of an attraction for them. When I hear old books talk about the elderly, I remind myself that Scrooge was in his 50s. Yes, not Scrooge McDuck, but Scrooge as in Ebenezer Scrooge. The one with the ghost of Christmas past, etc. That one. Chapter 6, Getting Off the Roof. For a few minutes, Mr. Sharp was so engrossed in looking underneath the craft to ascertain in what condition the various planes and braces were, planes, the wings and other surfaces that are used for controlling it, that he paid little attention to the old maid's school principal after his first greeting. But Miss Perkman was not a person to be ignored. "I won't pay for the damage to the tower of my school," she went on. "I could also demand damages for trespassing on my roof, but I will refrain in this case. Young ladies, will you go to your rooms?" she demanded. "Oh, please let us stay," pleaded Mary Nestor, beside whom Tom now stood. "Perhaps Professor Swift will lecture on clouds and air currents and such things as that," the girl went on slyly, smiling at the somewhat embarrassed lad. She's now calling him Professor to get the teacher to concede. Acquiesce, not concede. "If there is a professor present, perhaps it might be a good idea to absorb some knowledge," admitted the old maid, and unconsciously she smoothed her hair and settled her gold spectacles straighter on her nose. "Professor, I will delay collecting she probably thinks that Mr. Sharp. "Professor, I will delay collecting damages on behalf of the Roxmond Young Ladies Seminary if you will deliver a lecture on air currents," she went on, addressing herself to Mr. Sharp. "Oh, I'm not a professor," he said quickly. "I'm a professional balloonist, parachute jumper. Give exhibitions at county fairs. That's not going to win any kudos with the teacher, telling her that you're a professional balloonist and parachute jumper and you perform at country fairs. Wrong thing. Leap for life and all that sort of thing. I guess you mean my friend. He's smart enough for a professor. Invented a lot of things. How much is the damage?" "No professor!" cried Miss Perkman indignantly. "Why, I understood from Miss Nestor that she called someone professor." "I was referring to my friend, Mr. Swift," said Mary. "His father's a professor, you know. Isn't he, Tom? I meant Mr. Swift." "I believe he has a degree, but he never uses it," was the lad's answer. I'm starting to feel like I picked the wrong bottle for the lad. "Ha! Then I have been deceived. There is no professor present," and the old maid drew herself up as though desirous of punishing someone. "Young ladies, for the last time I order you to your rooms," and with a dramatic gesture she pointed to the scuttle through which the procession had come. That's one of those angled roofs that come up out of the flat roof, and it's got a door in the side of it to access the roofway. "Say something, Tom. I mean, Mr. Swift," appealed Mary Nestor in a whisper to our hero. "Can't you give some sort of a lecture? The girls are just crazy to hear about the airship, and this ogress won't let us. Say something." I don't know what to say," stammered Tom, but he was saved from the necessity for just then. For just then, several women, evidently other teachers, came out on the roof. "Oh, "Oh, an airship!" exclaimed one. "How lovely! We thought it was an earthquake and we were afraid to come up for quite a while. But an airship! I've always wanted to see one." "Oh, an airship!" You can just see it, can't you? "I've always wanted to see one, and now I have an opportunity. It will be just the thing for my physical geography class and natural history class. Young ladies, attention, and I will explain certain things to you. Miss Delafield, do you understand enough about an airship to lecture on one?" asked Miss Perkman smartly. "Enough so that my class may benefit," answered the other teacher, who was quite pretty. "Ahem, that is sufficient and a different matter," conceded Miss Perkman. "Young ladies, give your undivided attention to Miss Delafield, and I trust you will profit by what she tells you. Meanwhile, I wish to have some conversation concerning the damages with the persons who so unceremoniously visited us. It is a shame that the pupils of the Roxman Seminary should be disturbed at their studies. Sir, I wish to talk with you." And the principal pointed a long, straight finger at Mr. Sharp. "Young ladies, attention!" called Miss Delafield. "You will observe the large red body at the top. That is—" "I'd rather have you explain it," whispered Mary Nestor to Tom. "Come on, slip around to the other side. May I bring a few of my friends with me? I can't bear Miss Delafield. She thinks she knows everything. She won't see us if we slip around." "I shall be delighted," said Tom, "only I fear I may have to help Mr. Sharp out of his trouble." "Don't worry about me, Tom," said the balloonist, who overheard him. "Let me do the explaining. I'm an old hand at it. Been in trouble before. Many a time I've had to pay damages for coming down on a farmer's cornfield. I'll attend to the lady principal, and you can explain things to the young ones." And with a wink, the jolly aeronaut stepped over to where Miss Perkman, in spite of her prejudice against the airship, was observing it curiously. Glad to have the chance to talk to his young lady friend, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, Tom slipped to the opposite side of the car with her and a few of her intimate friends, that means close friends back then, by the way, to whom she slyly beckoned. There Tom told how the Red Cloud came to be built and of his first trip in the air, while on the opposite side Miss Delafield lectured to the entire school on aeronautics, as she thought she knew them. And Goricki has written, which I think makes the Bill Murray Scrooged version the most accurately aged Scrooge. That's kind of how I imagined him, except for someone who is a little bit more mean and shriveled up in themselves, sort of thing, which Bill Murray can't quite pull off, just because he's not as skinny as that. Scrooge, in my mind, was, as part of being a miser, was he ate very little and it was very cheap food. He would eat meat, but it would have been a very cheap cut that had been possibly cooked for quite a long time to make it so it wasn't so tough, things like that. And so therefore he would not have had a lot of fat on him. He was not the sort of miser who was a gluttonous miser, as in saving lots for his own benefit. He was saving it because he wanted to save it. So yeah. But yeah, I think of Bill Murray as being the right age bracket for Scrooge. She was lecturing on aeronautics as she thought she knew them. Mr. Sharp evidently did know how to explain matters to the irate principal, for in a short while she was smiling. So he's done this a lot of times before and been successful at it. Not with an airship, but you know. By this time, Tom had about finished his little lecture and Miss Delafield was at the end of hers. The entire school of girls were grouped about the Red Cloud, curiously examining it, but Mary Nestor and her friends probably learned more than any of the others. Tom was informed that his friend had been attending the school in Roxmond since the fall term opened. So it's Mary Nestor. "I little thought when I found we were going to smash into that tower that you were below there studying," said the lad to the girl. Lad. "I do hope you guys, you folk are drinking your water. I'm not seeing any hydration alerts in chat." I'm afraid I wasn't doing much studying, she confessed. I had just a glimpse of the airship through the window, and I was wondering who was in it when the crash came. Miss Perkman, who is nothing if not brave, at once started for the roof, and we girls all followed her. However are you going to get the ship down? I'm afraid it's going to be quite a job, admitted Tom ruefully. If there's nothing wrong except for the propeller, replace the propeller, gas it up again, and take off. You know. I'm afraid it's going to be quite a job, admitted Tom ruefully. Something went wrong with the machinery, or this never would have happened. As soon as Mr. Sharp has settled with your principal, we will see what we can do. I guess he's settled now, observed Miss Nestor. Here he comes. The aeronaut and Miss Perkman were approaching together, and the old maid did not seem half so angry as she had been. Most times older people are angry. It's because something has not just distracted them, but it's given them a fright, and they're trying to process that shot of adrenaline that they're not used to getting. That's a big part of why people get angry, is because they're trying to get the feeling from that adrenaline out of their system. You see, Mr. Sharp was saying, it will be a good advertisement for your school, or advertisement, if you say it that way. Think of having the distinction of having harboured the powerful airship Red Cloud on your roof. I never thought of it in that light, admitted the principal. Perhaps you are right. I shall put it in my next catalogue. And as for damages to the tower, we will pay you $50, continued the balloonist. Do you agree to that, Mr. Swift? He asked Tom. I think your father, the professor, would call that fair. A little bit of rank pulling there. Oh, as long as this airship is partly the property of a professor, perhaps I should only take $35. He's going to pay in Canadian and get a deal. Yeah. You know, New York, it's only over the border. Toss it over. Put in Miss Perkman. I am a great admirer of professors. I mean, in a strictly educational sense. She went on as she detected a tendency on the part of some of the young ladies to giggle. No, $50 will be about right, went on Mr. Sharp, pulling out a well-filled wallet. I will pay you now. And if you will wait, I will give you a receipt, continued the principal, evidently as much appeased at the mention of a professor's title as she was by the money, and she'll be impressed and use it in a world's class. Yes. And if you'll... no, I've got that. We're getting off cheap, the balloonist whispered to Tom as the head of the seminary started down the scuttle to the classrooms below. Maybe it's easier getting out of that difficulty than it will be off the roof, replied the lad. Don't worry, leave that to me, the aeronaut said. Took considerable to ruffle Mr. Sharp. With a receipt in full for the damage to the tower, and expressing the hope that some day in the near future Professor Swift would do the seminary the honour of lecturing to the young lady pupils, Miss Perkman bade Mr. Sharp and Tom goodbye. Young ladies, to your rooms, she commanded. You have learned enough of airships, and there may be some danger getting this one off the roof. Wouldn't you like to stay and take a ride in it? Tom asked Miss Nestor. Indeed I would, she answered daringly. It's better than a motorboat, may I? Remember, she's the one who was out in her cousin's motorboat, on her own, driving it on her own. Some day when we get more expert in managing it, he replied, and shook hands with her. Now for some hard work, went on the young inventor to Mr. Sharp, when the roof was cleared of the last of the teachers and the pupils. But the windows that gave a view of the airship in its odd position on the roof were soon filled with eager faces, while in the streets below was a great crowd offering all manner of suggestions. Oh, it's not going to be such a task, said Mr. Sharp. First we will repair the rudder and the machinery, and then we'll generate some more gas, rise and fly home. But the broken propeller? Objected Tom. We can fly with one as well as we can with two, but not so swiftly. Don't worry, we'll come out all right. And the balloonist assumed a confident air. It was not so difficult a problem as Tom had imagined to put the machinery in order, a simple break having impaired the working of the rudder. Then the smashed propeller was unshipped, that means removed, and the gas machine started. With all the pupils watching from the windows and a crowd observing from the streets and surrounding country, for word of the happening had spread, Tom and his friend prepared to ascend. Oh yeah, one of the different pages I was looking at actually talked about how they used to produce the hydrogen for making these things fly. It's something like sulfur something or other being washed across iron, some form of iron, and it releases this hydrogen gas. I don't know, you can look it up. But look up Airship and how they work. There's a whole lot of stuff about them. Lots and lots online. Mainly the older stuff is what you're looking for, not the modern stuff. Then the smashed propeller was unshipped and the gas machine started. We have motor? No, it was machinery, wasn't it? With all the pupils watching from windows and a crowd observing from the streets and surrounding country, for word of the happening had spread, Tom and his friend prepared to ascend. They arose as well as they had done at the shed at home, and in a little while were floating over the school. Tom fancied he could observe a certain hand waving to him as he peered from the window of the car, a hand in one of the school casements, that's the windows. But there were so many pretty girls doing the same thing. I hardly see how Tom could pick out any certain one, though he had extraordinarily good eyesight. However, the airship was now afloat, and starting the motor, I knew it would come. Mr. Sharp found that even with one propeller, the Red Cloud did fairly well, making good speed. Now for home, to repair everything, and then we'll be ready for a longer trip, the aeronaut said to the young inventor as they turned around and headed off before the wind, while hundreds below them cheered. We ought to carry spare propellers if we're going to smash into school towers, remarked Tom. I seem to be a sort of hoodoo. Nonsense, it wasn't your fault at all, commented Mr. Sharp warmly. It would have happened to me had I been steering, but we will take an extra propeller along after this. An hour later they arrived in front of the big shed, and the Red Cloud was safely housed. Mr. Swift was just beginning to get anxious about his son and his friend, and was glad to welcome them back. Now for a big trip in about a week, exclaimed Mr. Sharp enthusiastically. You'll come with us, won't you, Mr. Swift? The inventor slowly shook his head. Not on a trip. Bring a spare propeller, Ella. in tune with Umbrella. Not on a trip, he said. I may go for a trial spin with you, but I've got too important a matter underway to venture on a long trip. And he turned away without explaining what it was. But Tom and Mr. Sharp were soon to learn. There you go. That's that chapter. And I'm going to put this down for a minute. It's 2:18. We've got a little bit more time. That's great. I am just going to grab something to... No, not to drink. Oh, I know what else. I've actually got something else to eat that's already open. Some cheezels. All three words were in that chapter. They were. Which one? Gas? I drank for gas. I drank for lad. And I drank for motor. I expected you to go through bottles like Xantha. Do we have a minimum mouthful size now? It would help if I had smaller water bottles, actually. Right, we're carrying on. Actually, before I get to that, I'm having a drink. And that was gas, in case you're wondering. Right, I haven't got any coffee or anything like that this time. I have to drink that afterwards. Chapter 7, Andy tries a trick. Gas. Yes, yummy. Delicious gas. I had some earlier on. Carbon dioxide in my melon soda. My see-through melon soda bottle. Chapter 7, Andy tries a trick. Without loss of time, the young inventor and the aeronaut began to repair the damage done to the Red Cloud by colliding with the tower. The most important part to reconstruct was the propeller, and Mr. Sharp decided to make 2 instead of 1 in order to have an extra one in case of future accidents. Yay! This is telling me that I've got access to moderator tools, but I'm not seeing them. I'm just seeing my normal stuff on screen. I don't know why. Sorry, my tablets. Tom was asked to arrange the mechanism so that hereafter the rudder could not become jammed. I think it's access to a mod server. Okay, cool, thanks. Tom's task was to arrange the mechanism so that hereafter the rudder could not become jammed and so prevent the airship from steering properly. This the lad accomplished by a simple but effective device which, when the balloonist saw it, caused him to compliment Tom. Well, Tom's actually very, very, very logical in terms of this does this, and if I don't want it to do that, I have to put something in between the two to stop that happening type of thinking. That's worth patenting, he declared. I advise you to take out papers on that. And I'm like, Tom knows all about patents. He's got several already. It seems such a simple thing, answered the youth. Not the lad, but the youth. And I don't see much use of spending the money for a patent. Airships aren't likely to be so numerous that I could make anything off that patent. Every book he has to relearn about them. Yes, he does. You take my advice, insisted Mr. Sharp. Airships are going to be more and used more in the future than you have any idea of. Oh, come on. Sorry, it's not showing me what I'm wanting it to show me. Let's go back there. I'm trying to get it so it puts my chat on my screen for me so I can see it. I'm just going to ignore it now. Pretend it's not there and just have to look up there instead. Right. You take my advice, insisted Mr. Sharp. Airships are going to be used more in the future than you have any idea of. You get that device patented. Tom did so, and not many years afterward he was glad that he had, as it brought him quite an income. There you go. It required several days' work on the Red Cloud before it was in shape for another trial. During the hours when he was engaged in the big shed helping Mr. Sharp, the young inventor spent many minutes calling to mind the memory of a certain fair face. And I think I need not mention any names to indicate whose face it was. She promised to go for a ride with me, mused the lad. I hope she doesn't back out, but I'll want to learn more about managing the ship before I venture with her in it. It won't do to have any accidents then. There's Ned Newton, too. I must take him for a skim in the clouds. Guess I'll invite him over some afternoon and give him a private view of the machine when we get it in shape again. Which one was Ned Newton? Oh, that's his best friend, that's right. About a week after the accident at the school, Mr. Sharp remarked to Tom one afternoon, "If the weather is good tomorrow, we'll try another flight. Do you suppose your father will come along? Because it's a trial." "I don't know," answered the lad. "He seems much engrossed in something. It's unusual, too, for he most generally tells me what he's engaged upon. However, I guess he'll say something about it when he gets ready." "Well, if he doesn't feel just like coming, don't argue him. He might be nervous, and while the ship is new, I don't want any nervous passengers aboard. I can't give them my attention and look after the running of the machinery. That's a fair enough sentiment for that sort of situation. I was going to propose bringing a friend of mine over to see us make the trip tomorrow, went on the young inventor. Ned Newton, you know him. He'd like a ride. Oh, I guess Ned's all right. Let him come along. We won't go very high tomorrow. After a trial rise by means of the gas, I'm going to lower the ship to the ground and try for an elevation by means of the planes. That's the wings. Oh, yes, bring your friend along. Ned Newton was delighted the next day to receive Tom's invitation, and though a little dubious about trusting himself in an airship for the first time, finally consented to go with his chum. He got a half-holiday from the bank, and shortly after dinner went to Tom's house, because Ned works at the bank, remember. Come on out to the shed and take a look at the Red Cloud, proposed the young inventor. Mr. Sharp isn't quite ready to start yet, and I'll explain some things to you. The big shed was deserted when the lads entered, and went to the loft. Lads. And went to the loft where they were on a level with the big red aluminium tank. That's the envelope of it. The big red aluminium tank is the floaty bit. Tom began with a description of the machinery, and Ned followed with interest. Now we'll go down into the car or cabin, continued the young navigator of the air, and I'll show you what we do when we're touring amid the clouds. As they started to descend the flight of steps from the loft platform, a noise on the ground below attracted their attention. Guess that's Mr. Sharp coming, said Ned. Tom leaned over and looked down. An instant later he grasped the arm of his chum and motioned to him to keep silent. Take a look, whispered the young inventor. Andy Foger, exclaimed Ned, peering over the railing. Yes, and Sam Snedeker and Pete Bailey are with them. They sneaked in when I left the door open. Silly boy. Wonder what they want. Up to some mischief, I'll wager, commented Ned. Hark, they're talking. Hark? I think it's only when you're reading books that they say hark. I don't think they say that in real life. Hark, they're talking. The two lads on the loft listened intently. Though the cronies on the ground below them did not speak loudly, their voices came plainly to the listeners. Let's poke a hole in their gas bag, proposed Sam. That'll make them think they're not so smart as they pretend. Nah, we can't do that, answered Andy. Why not? Declared Pete. Because the bag's way up in the top part of the shed and I'm not going to climb up there. You're afraid, sneered Sam. I'm not. I'll punch your face if you say that again. Besides, the thing that holds the gas is made of aluminium, and we can't make a hole in it unless we take an axe, and that makes too much noise. So it's not a flexible balloon shape, by the sound of it. We ought to play some sort of trick on Tom Swift, proposed Pete. He's too fresh. Smart, clever. Tom shook his fist at the lads on the ground, but of course they did not see him. I have it, came from Andy. What? Demanded his two cronies. We'll cut some of the guy wires from the planes and rudders. That'll make the airship collapse. Maybe they should try having these conversations at home before they leave. Yeah. They'll think the wires broke from the strain. Take out your knives and saw away at the wires. Hurry, too, or they may catch us. You're caught now, whispered Ned to Tom. Come on down. Give 'em a trouncing. Tom hesitated. He looked quickly about the loft, and then a smile replaced the frown of righteous anger on his face. I have a better way, he said. What is it? See that pile of dirt? And he pointed to some refuse that had been swept up from the floor of the loft. Ned noticed. It consists of a lot of shavings, sawdust, and what's more, a lot of soot and lamp black that we used in mixing some paint. We'll sweep the whole pile down on their heads and make them wish they stayed away from this place. Good, exclaimed Ned, chuckling. Give me a broom. There's another one for you. Yeah, they're going to give them black lungers, right? TV is bad at it too. Let's have this conversation before we get in the car instead of while we're driving to point B. And looking at the other person the whole time and they're driving like this. That's never made sense to me. You should be driving like this and talking and then occasionally glancing at the other person. Nobody believes that this is normal when you're driving a car. The two lads in the... they've both got brooms now. The two lads in the loft peered down, looking into the back seat. Oh, yeah, that one, where it's like hand on the wheel and they've got their other hand over the seat next to them and they're talking like this. And the directors seem to forget that when you do that, you actually change your steering. You don't keep driving straight. I don't know if you've ever tried it, but if you're not paying attention to that, what's in front of you, and you turn, you actually turn the wheel with you. Yeah, use your mirror. Some drivers play phone games. What are you on about? They deserve to meet a big ditch or a pole that's unforgiving in terms of broken bones and expensive car repairs that are not covered by insurance, as long as it's their own car. Good, exclaimed Ned, chuckling. Here's a broom. The two lads in the loft peered down. I'd had that drink. The red-headed, squint-eyed bully and his chums had their knives out and were about to cut some of the important guy wires, the support wires, when, at a signal from Tom, Ned, with a sweep of his broom, sent a big pile of the dirt, sawdust and lampblack down upon the heads of the conspirators. The young inventor did the same thing, and for an instant the lower part of the shed looked as if a dirt storm had taken place. Oh my goodness. Here's your TV, movie, drinking game. Anytime the driver and or front passenger are not wearing safety belts. Yeah, that's another one. Sent a big pile of dirt, sawdust and lampblack down upon the heads of the conspirators. The young inventor did the same thing, and for an instant the lower part of the shed looked as if a dirt storm had taken place there. The pile of refuse went straight down on the heads of the trio, and as they were looking up in order to see to cut the wires, they received considerable of it in their faces. In an instant the white countenances of the lads was changed to black. As black as the burnt cork performers in a minstrel show. Then came a series of howls. Wow! Who did that? I'm blinded. The shed's falling down. Run, fellas, run! Screamed Andy. There's been an explosion. We'll be killed. Anytime they don't signal when turning, that's another one, yes. Oh, good grief. Hollywood is so bad, generally, about showing safety. Oh, they are. And high, yes, high shelf, past shelf date. We'll carry on. These guys are having a bit of a time. Run, fellows, run, screamed Andy. There's been an explosion. We'll be killed. At that moment, the big doors of the shed were thrown open and Mr. Sharp came in. He started back in astonishment at the sight of the three grotesque figures, their faces black with soot and their clothes covered with sawdust and shavings, rushing wildly around. That'll teach you to come meddling around here, Andy Foger, cried Tom. Smoking at the pump's another one, yes. And Koriki says that coleslaw is a glittering red panda. Oh, that's lovely. I don't know, there must be a cooldown on it. Yeah. Anyway, let's carry on. You, spluttered the bully, almost speechless with rage. And apparently I'm a bright butterfly. Speechless with rage, Sam and Pete were wildly trying to wipe the stuff from their faces, but only made matters worse. If anyone has ever tried to clear up soot, as soon as you try to brush it off, it smears it and it sticks to the surface. Whereas if it's just sitting on the surface and you can blow it off, get it to move off with air, you don't get anywhere near as much stuck on your skin. No, definitely not try and wipe it off. Pete was trying wildly to wipe the stuff from their Sam and Pete trying to wipe the stuff from their faces only made matters worse. They were so startled that they did not know enough to run out of the open doors. Wish we had some more stuff to put on them, remarked Ned, who was holding his sides that ached from laughter. I have it, cried Tom, and he caught up a bucket of red paint that had been used to give the airship its brilliant hue. Running to the end of the loft, Tom stood for an instant over the trio of lads who were threatening and imploring by turns. Here's another souvenir of your visit, shouted the young inventor as he dashed the bucket of red paint down on the conspirators. So he's holding it and pouring it. This completed the work of the dirt and soot, and a few seconds later each face looked like a stage Indian ready for the warpath. The trio dashed out. They shed shavings, sawdust and lamp black at every step, and from their clothes and hands and faces dripped the carmine paint. Better have your pictures taken, called Ned, peering from an upper window. Yes, and send us one, added Tom, joining his chum. Andy looked up at them. He dug a mass of red paint from his left ear, removed a mass of soot from his right cheek, and shaking his fist, which was alternately striped red and black, cried out in a rage, I'll get even with you yet, Tom Swift. You only got what was coming to you, retorted the young inventor. The next time you come sneaking around this airship trying to damage it, you'll get worse. And I'll have you arrested. You have had your lesson and don't forget it. The red-haired bully, doubly red-haired now, had nothing more to say. There was nothing he could say, and accompanied by his companions... I want one, yes, please.
That's what I was
accompanied by his... I've got Copy Boy. Sorry, someone what? Someone redeem Cat Cam, PJ's saying. There was nothing he could... the red-haired bully, doubly red-haired now, Goriki says Coffee Boy, is an illustrious box of pizza. You're an illustrious box of pizza. And I'm a delicious red panda. Om nom nom. And Theodore and Coleslaw are chilling. It's lovely. Goriki says Theo is a beautiful wise-eyed firefly who currently has its wise eyes shut. Right, we'll carry on. The red-haired bully, doubly red-haired now, had nothing more to say. There was nothing he could say, and accompanied by his companions, he made a beeline for the rear gate in the fence, which was meant to be locked, remember, and darted across the meadow. They were all sorry enough looking specimens, but solely through their own fault. But they were still trying to get back at the others. Oh dear. Chapter 8, Winning a Prize. Oh, I missed that one. Past shelf date says, interesting that you call me a unicorn. Random number generation, really. Yeah. Where's that one? I missed it because I read the others out. Oh, Goriki says past shelf date is a vivacious unicorn. There you go. Vivacious is a good word for someone who's ADHD, by the way. Oh, cool. That's what Jennifer Newhard, PhD, called me when she added up my results on the WAIS 4 test battery. All I wanted was proof that I really do have ADD. Yeah, definitely. I think you passed. Yoriki's asking the 8 ball, does past shelf date still have unicorn ADD? And the 8 ball says, this is the way. See, it's official. Well, my mental processing speed's about two standard deviations behind the rest of my mind, which is in the top 0.1%. Yes, you're probably like me. You watch videos at 1.5 to 2 times speed. Some of them I'm watching. Oh, yeah, I'm between chapters. That's right then. Some of them I'm watching a YouTube video and I'm thinking like, why is 2 times the fastest this will go? Just because some people talk really, really Slowly. I can't even put the words out slow enough normally to make it work. But my favourite part of Richmond, Virginia Mensa is when we're all struggling to understand a game that's rated 12 and up. Yeah. You can be really quick and smart on some stuff. I'm talking personal experience. On some stuff, it's like, huh? Say that again? No, still didn't get it. Say that again? No, you're going to have to use different words. Say it again? It's me. Even though other things, somebody will be talking and I'll go, I've got all that. I'm already 5 sentences ahead. Get to the next bit. I think you have me backwards. I need people to talk slower. Oh, no. And here I am and I talk so fast. Like seeing a sentence with had in it. Yeah. I'm so sorry about that. Past shelf date. Oh, PJ's saying for himself, yay for audio processing disorders. Okay, I do listen to podcasts at 1.1 speed, yeah. A lot of programs I will watch at 1.25 just because I do want the detail in it. I don't want to miss that. And usually programs, they speak at a reasonable measure anyway. But some YouTubers, they speak so slowly. Oh, thank you, Past Shelf Date. That's such a relief to hear. You don't have trouble following me. Oh, that's such good news. Peekaboo told me my security streams are really funny at 1.5 to 2 times speed, says Goriki. One of the funny things with one of the video players I've got is you can speed things up, and if you do it without a particular setting on, the pitch goes up accordingly, which is what traditional recordings do. When you play something faster, it gets higher pitched. And other things, I've got a setting that's always turned on in this particular video player. I've got it set so that the pitch stays the same when I play something faster, so I don't get someone to do this all the time, sort of thing. But yeah, if you turn that off, it's like, oops, that's a little bit weird. What was that? Yeah, so you don't have to listen to chipmunks all the time. Anyway, let's carry on. We're up to chapter 8, and we've got just over 1/4 hour to go, and we've got 16 pages in the chapter. So that's actually good numbers, good combination. Because one of the things I've noticed is for the font size that I use in my iPad mini, it's about a page a minute roughly. If I'm trying to project how long something's going to take, that seems to be reasonably accurate. Anyway, we'll carry on. Chapter 8, Winning a Prize. Well, Tom, what happened? Asked Mr. Sharp as he saw the trio running away. Looks as if you'd had an exciting time here. No, those fellows had all the excitement, declared Ned. We had the fun, and the two lads proceeded to relate what had taken place. Time to just check in case they had done any damage. Tried to damage the airship, eh? Subtitle's been drunk since the hello test just before the real one. Nothing I can do about that except for change the language. Sorry. I can change it to American English or something like that if you want me to give it a try. It's currently New Zealand English and it still doesn't understand me. I don't know why. Wonder if it was Irish. We could try Irish, couldn't we? Hang on a minute. This is an amusing thought. I can hear PJ giggling downstairs. What? What?
I think with all this fiddling around, you're going to be going past your time now.
He says, with all this fiddling around, I'm going to be going past my time now. English Ireland. We're going to try that. Now I hit the save button and we'll see if it's going to actually understand anything I say. Wouldn't it be funny if it was the most different to my accent and it got it the most accurately? That would be funny. And that's currently running in Irish English, okay? Let's see what that happens. Tried to damage the airship, eh? Asked Mr. Sharp. I wish I'd caught them at it, the scoundrels, but perhaps you handled them as well as I could have done. Ice? No, I could have done. I guess so, assented Tom. I must see if they did cut any of the wires. But the young inventor and his chum had acted too quickly, and it was found that nothing had been done to the red cloud. A little later, the airship was taken out of the shed and made ready for a trip. The gas ascension was first used, that causing it to go up, obviously. And Ned and Mr. Swift were passengers with Tom and Mr. Sharp. Onion as chum? The machine went about 1,000 feet up in the air, and then was sent in various directions, to the no small delight of a large crowd that gathered in the meadow behind the Swift property. For it only required the sight of the airship looming its bulk above the fence and the buildings to attract a throng. It is safe to say this time, however, that Andy Foger and his cronies were not in the audience. They were probably too busy removing the soot and red paint. Delight, capital D, that's capital. I saw that. I have no idea why it chose to spell delight with a capital D, like it's someone's name. The word delight, when something is delightful, is used way more often than calling someone a delight, as in that's their name. It's so strange, some of the things in this. Blame Google, because that's where the captions come through. Although it was the first time Mr. Swift had ever been in an airship, he evinced no great astonishment. In fact, he seemed to be thinking deeply. Oh, by the way, you guys are paying attention to how good or bad the captions are, okay? When I do a swap, like from New Zealand English to Irish, please tell me afterwards, over in Discord or wherever, which one was the most accurate for the time that we were reading. You don't need to do a serious analysis. Shouldn't I be faking an Irish voice to help? No, that would make it worse, actually. We'll sort that out later on when I'm not in ads. Although it was the first time Mr. Swift had ever been in an airship, he evinced no great astonishment. In fact, he seemed to be thinking deeply and on some subject not connected with aeronautics. Tom noticed the abstraction on his father and shook his head. Clearly, the aged inventor was not his usual self. He's probably over 55, therefore he's ancient. As for Ned Newton, his delight knew no bounds. At first he was a bit apprehensive as the big ship went higher and higher and swung about, but he soon lost his fear and enjoyed the experience as much as did Tom. Thank you. Here's my coffee. Did you end up putting the other one in?
In mine.
Yeah, that's cool.
Because your one ran out as it was.
We're just trying out a couple of different flavours of coffee at the moment. When I say flavours, I mean just different
brands.
Roasts, different brands.
Yeah.
Not flavoured coffee.
Yeah. No.
Well, it's been all right so far. It's better, but it seems to be slower at listening to what I say. Oh, that's interesting. I wonder if because it's not the actual accent I'm speaking in, it's having to work a bit harder. I don't know. It's weird. Their captioning system is really weird. Coffee.
Enjoyable. I have had to put cream in it.
Yeah, which means it's a bit acidic.
Yep. Not quite as enjoyable as the Boxer.
Yeah, but better than
better than the Matacana.
Yes. What was the other one we tried?
Carajo's. That was awful.
Oh, it was. We're trying different brands that are available in New Zealand. It's trying to be more thoughtful. It's heard your complaints. That's a nice idea. So, yeah, we'll give you a result at some stage and probably put photos in.
Have good stream.
Yeah, we're nearly there. We'll probably put photos over in chat in Discord sometime when we come to a conclusion about the different coffees that we have. Easy. I want a coffee that's regularly available through my supermarket. It can be locally produced. It can be produced somewhere else in New Zealand. I don't really mind. I've been loyal to a couple of local brands. When one closed down, I went to another one, and it was okay, but it's not as good now. So, just because I know you need to know about my trouble with coffee, it's important since it's the fuel of the stream. Anyway, we'll carry on. As for Ned Newton, his delight knew no bounds. At first he was a bit apprehensive as the big ship went higher and higher and swung about, but he soon lost his fear and enjoyed the experience as much as did Tom. The young inventor was busy helping Mr. Sharp manage the machinery, rudders, planes, and motor. But rudders, planes? I think it's meant to be rudder planes, the tabs. Motor. Carrying on. A flight of several miles was made, and Tom was wishing they might pay another visit to the Roxmond Seminary, that's the school with the girls, but Mr. Sharp, after completing several evolutions designed to test the steering qualities of the craft, put back home. "We'll land in the meadow and try rising by the planes alone," he said. So that means using the propeller and the wings, the lift that wings create, to lift it up instead of using the balloon itself. In this evolution, it was deemed best for Mr. Swift and Ned to alight, as there was no telling just how the craft would behave. Tom's father was very willing to get out, but Ned would have remained in only for the desire of his friend, so he only got out because Tom told him to. With the two propellers whirring at a tremendous speed and all the gas out of the aluminium container, the Red Cloud shot forward, running over the level ground of the meadow where a starting course had been laid out. "Clear the track!" cried Mr. Sharp as he saw the crowd closing up in front of him. The men, boys, several girls and women made a living lane through the shot the craft, and then, when sufficient momentum had been obtained, Tom, at a command from the aeronaut, pulled the lever of the elevation rudder. Gas. Yes, right. Very good. Up into the air shot the nose of the Red Cloud as the wind struck the slanting surface of the plains, and a moment later it was sailing high above the heads of the throng. So we know that the thing works just like a conventional aeroplane. That's what they're testing. Thank you, Goriki. "That's the stuff," cried Mr. Sharp. "It works as well that way as it does with the gas." Gas. No, that's lad. I did that before, so that means we need 2 of these. That was a bonus, lad. Gas for before, and gas again. Higher and higher it went, and then coming to a level keel, the craft was sent here and there, darting about like a bird and going about in huge circles. "Start the gas machine." You happy, Gorigi? We're getting a few through it now. "And we'll come to rest in the air," said the balloonist, and Tom did so. As the powerful vapour filled the container, the ship acquired a buoyancy, and there was no need of going at high speed in order to sustain it. The propellers were stopped, and the Red Cloud floated 2,000 feet in the air. Gas should just be on an IV and you reach over for the brake switch. On a booklet that's about an airship, yeah. The Red Cloud floated at 2,000 feet in the air, only a little distance below some fleecy white masses from which she took her name. The demonstration was a great success. The gas was again allowed to escape. The propellers set in motion, and purely as an aeroplane, the ship was again sent forward. By means of the planes and rudders, a perfect landing was made in the meadow, a short distance from where the start had been made. The crowd cheered the plucky youth and Mr. Sharp. "Now I'm ready to go on a long trip any time you are, Tom," said the aeronaut that night. "We'll fit up the car and get ready," agreed the youth. "How about you, Dad?" "Me? Oh, well, that is, you see, well, I'll think about it." And Mr. Swift went to his own room, carrying with him a package of papers containing intricate calculations. Tom shook his head but said nothing. He could not understand his father's conduct. He's obviously got something on his mind. Work was starting the next day on fitting up the car or cabin of the airship, and so that several persons could live, eat and sleep in it for 2 weeks. If necessary. The 3rd day after this task had been commenced, the mail brought an unusual communication to Tom and Mr. Sharp. It was from an aero club of Blakesville, a city distant about 100 miles, and stated that a competition for aeroplanes and dirigible balloons was to be held in the course of 2 weeks. The affair was designed to increase interest in the sport, and also to demonstrate what progress had been made in the art of conquering the air. Prizes were to be given, and the inventors of the Red Cloud, the achievements of which the Committee of Arrangements had heard, were invited to compete. That was such an awkward sentence. "Shall we go in for it, Tom?" asked the balloonist. "I'm willing if you are," said Tom. "Then let's do it. We'll see how our craft shows up alongside of others. I know something of this club. It's all right, but the carnival is likely to be a small one. Once I gave a balloon exhibition for them. The managers are all right. Well, we'll have a try at it. Won't do us any harm to win a prize. Then for a long trip." As it was not necessary to have the car or cabin completely fitted up in order to compete for the prize, work in that direction was suspended for the time being, and more attention was paid. So many drinks, I'm paying it forward to my plants outside while listening, getting a good watering. Very good. Well done. More attention was paid to the engine, the planes, and the rudders. Some changes were made, and a week later the Red Cloud departed for Blakeville. As the rules of the contest required 3 passengers, Ned Newton was taken along, Mr. Swift having arranged with the bank president so that the lad could have a few days off. The Red Cloud arrived at the carnival grounds in the evening, having been delayed on the trip by a broken cogwheel. Oh dear. Which was mended in mid-air. As the 3 navigators approached, they saw a small machine flying around the grounds. "Look!" cried Ned excitedly. "What a small airship! That's a monoplane," declared Tom, who was getting to be quite an expert. "And we don't call them that anymore. A monoplane is a normal plane." "Yes, the same kind that was used to cross the English Channel," interjected Mr. Sharp. "They're too uncertain for my purposes, though. They're all right under certain conditions." Part of it is reliability of engines back in the day, whereas now they're very reliable. And so you relied on having more lift because you had 2 wings, like with a biplane, to keep things going. Maybe the monoplane kissed Chrissy at Eddie's party. Hardly had he spoken than a puff of wind caused the daring manipulator of the monoplane to swerve to one side. He had to make a quick descent. So rapid was it, in fact, that the tips of one of his planes was smashed. Yeah, because they were also very light, sort of like light wood and fabric that was sealed. Doped, that means you put a coating of thinned down varnish over the fabric to make it so that it is less, air can't get through it quite as easily. And that's how those early ones were built. It's like, oh my goodness. "It'll take him a day to repair that," commented the aeronaut dryly. The Red Cloud created a sensation as she slowly settled down in front of the big tent assigned to her. Tom's craft was easily the best one at the carnival so far, though the managers said other machines were on the way. The exhibition opened the next day, but no flights were to be attempted until the day following. 2 more craft arrived, a big triplane and a dirigible balloon. Yeah, just pausing for a minute, if you've ever seen the movie Those Marvelous Men and Their Flying Machines, those ridiculous aircraft in that are kind of some of the things that were being developed in this time period. Some of them are absolutely ridiculous, but yeah, they're inspired by the sort of stuff that was going on. They were a lot more experimental than we are these days with them, because they were actually going speeds that were a lot less dangerous, and altitude that was a lot less dangerous than we've got now. Doesn't mean that there weren't accidents. There were plenty, but they learnt from it. 2 more craft arrived, a large triplane, and that means it's got 3 sets of wings, triplane, and a dirigible balloon. as opposed to hot air balloon, remember? There were many visitors to the ground, and Tom, Ned and Mr. Sharp were kept busy answering questions put by those who crowded into their tent. Toward the close of the day, a fussy little Frenchman entered, and making his way to where Tom stood, asked, "Are you the owner of this machine?" "One of them," replied the lad. "Ha! Sacre! Then I challenge you to a race. I have a monoplane that is the swiftest ever. 1,000 francs I will wager you that I can fly higher and farther than you." And there you go, you get a bonus accent with no redeem necessary. "Shall we take him up, Mr. Sharp?" asked Tom. By the way, I'm reading the words that are written there. Father Zan, you, but I'm just throwing a bit of extra accent in there. "We'll race with him after we get through with the club entries," decided the aeronaut, "but not for money. It's against my principles, and I don't believe your father would like it. Racing for prizes is a different thing." "Well, we will devote the money to charity," conceded the Frenchman. This was a different matter, and one to which Mr. Sharp did not object, so it was arranged that a trial should take place after the regular affairs. That night was spent in getting the Red Cloud in shape for the contests of the next day. She was groomed until every wire was taut and every cog, lever and valve working perfectly. Ned Newton helped all he could. So much has appeared in the newspapers of the races at Blakeville that I will not devote much space to them here. That implies that the races at Blakeville actually were real things, not just for the story. So somebody please look them up. Blakeville, Blakeville. Around this time period, maybe slightly earlier than that, I don't know. Suffice it to say that the Red Cloud easily distanced the large dirigible from which much was expected. It was a closer contest with the larger triplane, but Tom's airship won and was given the prize, a fine silver cup, because that was what you got in those days. Probably because my dad was a jet fighter pilot back then, and for a couple more decades, I saw those magnificent men in their flying machines in a theatre. Yes. I remember, I don't know if I saw it in a theatre, but I remember seeing it on TV a number of times. Because of the generation my folks and my grandparents are from, it was considered to be some very fun entertainment by everybody at the time. And also the car race one, that was basically the same crowd. As the carnival was a small one, no other craft in a class with the Red Cloud had been entered, so Tom and Mr. Sharp had to be content with the one race that they won. There were other contests among monoplanes and biplanes, and the little Frenchman won 2 races. "Now for the affair with the monster balloon and of the rouge colour," he cried as he alighted from his monoplane, while an assistant filled the gasoline tank. I will in circles go around you, up and down, this side, then the other, and presto, I am back at the starting place before you have begun. Then charity shall be richer. Something. Smithsonian Airspace Magazine, the big race of 1910. Woohoo! Real. "All right, wait and see," said Tom easily. But though he showed much confidence, he asked Mr. Sharp in private, just before the impromptu contest, "Do you think we can beat him?" "Well," said the aeronaut, shrugging his shoulders, "can't tell you much about the air. His machine certainly goes very fast, but too much wind will be the undoing of him, while it will only help us. And I think," he added, "that we're going to get a breeze." Nice. It was arranged that the Red Cloud would start from the ground without the use of the gas, so as to make the machines more even. At the signal, off they started, the motors making a great racket. The monoplane with the little Frenchman in the seat got up first. "Aha!" he cried gaily. "I leave you in the rear. Catch me if you can. And by the way, if you're wondering about a hideous French accent, blame Hello, Hello, English TV series. Aha! No, I've already done that. Don't let him beat us, implored Ned. "Can't you speed her up any more?" inquired Tom of Mr. Sharp. The aeronaut nodded grimly and turned more gasoline into the 20-cylindered engine. My car has 4 or 6, I can't remember. Most cars have 4 or 6, unless it's a V8, and then it's got 8. And they're aligned like that. Well, actually like that. The pistons are like that through it, as opposed to a standard one where they're all in line. But the Frenchman also increased his... No, like a flash, the red clouds darted forward, but the Frenchman also increased his speed and did actually at first circle around the bigger machine, for his affair was much lighter. But when he tried to repeat that feat, he found that he was being left behind. "That's the stuff! We're winning!" yelled Tom. Ned joined in the shout. Then came a puff of wind. The monoplane had to descend, for it was in danger of turning turtle. Still, the navigator was not going to give up. He flew along at a lower level. Then Mr. Sharp opened up the red cloud's engine at full speed, and it was the big machine which now sailed around the other. I protest, cried the Frenchman above the explosions of his motor. "The wind is too strong for me." Mr. Sharp said nothing, but with an odd smile on his face, he sent the airship down toward the earth. A moment later, he was directly under the monoplane. Then, quickly rising, he fairly caught the Frenchman's machine on top of a square platform of the gas container, the bicycle wheels of the monoplane resting on the flat surface, and so swiftly did the red cloud fly along that it carried the monoplane with it, to the chagrin of the French navigator. A trick, he cried. "It is not fair." Then, dropping down, Mr. Sharp allowed the monoplane to proceed under its own power while he raced on to the finish mark, winning, of course, by a large margin. "Ha! A trick! I race you tomorrow and again tomorrow," cried the beaten Frenchman as he alighted. "No thanks," answered Tom. "We've had enough. I guess charity will be satisfied." The little Frenchman was a good loser, and paid over the money which was given to the Blakeville Hospital, the institution receiving it gladly. At the request of the Carnival Committee, Mr. Sharp and Tom gave an exhibition of high and long flights the next day, and created no little astonishment by their daring feats. Not so much of the aerobatics, though. The barrel rolls and the loop-de-loops and all those other sorts of things. "Well, I think we have reason to be proud of our ship," remarked Mr. Sharp that night. "We won the first contest we were ever in, and beat that speedy monoplane, which was no small thing to do, as they are very fast." "But wait till we go on our trip," added Tom, as he looked up at the cup they had won. He little realised what danger they were to meet in the flight that was before them. And that's the end of the chapter. And the end of today's reading, although I am going to read Goreki's comment there. Quote from the article: "The star of the show was a charismatic Frenchman, Louis Paulhan, who had brought 2 Farman biplanes with him and 2 Blériot monoplanes, and was guaranteed $25,000 to appear." So they were actually paying for him to go to the show to get a bigger crowd to come. Wow. That's impressive. I do like how they are referencing real stuff in these books, that real events as well as real inventions and developments in technology along the way, which I think is really cool, as opposed to a lot of things which were done. I mean, I enjoy other adventure stories, but it's really neat to have something that has a little bit more of a factual foundation to it, even if, like, my explanation at the beginning was that I feel like the description they've given us of the ship, it wouldn't actually function as well as they're saying, because of weight limits compared with the actual buoyancy of their gas and things like that. But that's to be expected, because we know a lot more about that sort of thing these days than what they did back then. But lots of fun, such fun. Now, what's today? Today is Monday. Oh, by the way, today, Happy King's birthday. It's King's birthday weekend here in New Zealand. It's not actually the King's birthday, as in King Charles III, but it's the day that we commemorate his birthday on. So there you go. Happy King's birthday, whether you have a king or not. And Pride Month too, yes. And happy Pride Month. Look after yourselves, okay? Take care of yourself in whatever way that means. Okay? For some people, that means just keeping a little bit careful with what you say. And for other people, it's giving yourself some time to just chill and relax. Different things for different people. So whatever you need to do to take care of yourself, please do, folks. I look forward to seeing you again next time. Next time being in 2 days' time, which will be my Wednesday, because today it is my Monday, even if for most of you it is your Sunday night. And so therefore it'll be your Tuesday night when I'm next online. Yeah, you're most welcome. I'm really enjoying this Tom Swift book. It's lovely. All the best, everybody. Take care of yourselves. Give yourself what you need to over the next few days, because you should. You need to take care of yourself as well as being aware of others around.